Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and especially to you, ma'am. I am Bruce Allen Abrahan, and now I'll continue our topic. And let's now proceed to the cost in people. Cost in people. The beach is commonly associated with relaxation, including ocean tides, sea breezes, and warm sand, which all help to remove the stress of everyday life. The coast is the focus of important economic, environmental, and social activity. Some of the country's most important natural habitat and heritage sites are located on the coast. Coast is important in economic. Why? Because tourism gives a lot of opportunities to the Filipinos. Human activity are often concentrated in coastal region, which are often least able to stimulate those activities, and where adverse effects are most apparent. Coastal zone are relatively fragile ecosystem, and disordered urbanization and development the infrastructure alone, or the combination with the uncoordinated industrial, tourism-related fishing and agricultural activities that can lead to the rapid degradation of the coastal habitat and resources. Mounting pressure on the coastal zone environment has several Europe countries resulted in a rapid decline in open space in the natural site and lack of space to accommodate coastal activities without significant harmful effect. But not all the effect of the coast are due to human activities. Climate have the serious direct and indirect effect on the coastal environment. The effect of occasional storm can be disastrous, whereas the indirect effect of climate change, in terms of the sea level rise, are predicted to cause the potential serious damage of unprotected low-lying areas along coastal zone. There is no common unique definition of what constitutes a coastal zone, but rather a number of complementary definitions, each serving different purposes. Although it is generally intuitively understood what is the meaning of the coastal zone, it is difficult to place precise boundaries. Coastal zone is the zone in which most infrastructure of human activities directly connected to the sea are located. This reflects partly the historical importance of coast and human settlement for reason and defense of providing sources of food. Coastal zones are favored areas for energy generation because of easy delivery of fuel for power station and convenient disposal of the cooling water. The landward part of the coastal zone plays the important role as place of the human settlement. In many cases, however, there has been overdevelopment in the coastal zone, and this has led to the degradation of the environment. This has in turn led to the policies and rectify or reduce damage causes. Human activity along the coast have both positive and negative. On the natural environment, as people migrate on the coast and residence, business, and recreation, they interact with the natural coastal environment. For the most part, because the coast is a very dynamic system and change can occur rapidly, people make the effort to control the nature and magnitude to those change. The most important of this change occurs on the beach are typically related in the erosion of the beach. Beach erosion is a widespread and causes significant problem for both the use of and protection by the beaches. Various structures such as seawalls, drains, and breakwater have been constructed to help protect beaches from the erosion. Many of such structure causes more problems than they solve. Such attempt to control the nature to change on the beach are among more negative impact from human. Coastal region. Coastal region are areas that are home to a large and growing proportion of the world's population, are undergoing environmental decline. The problem is particularly acute in developing countries. Reasoning for environmental decline are complex, but population factors play a significant role. Today, approximately 3 billion people, about half of the world population, live within 200 kilometers of coastline. By 2005, that figure is likely to double. The high concentrated of the people in coastal region has produced in many economic benefit, including improved transportation links, industrial and urban development, revenue from the tourism, and food production. Benefit and challenge in coastal region. The term coastal region also covers marine fisheries because of the bulk in the world's marine fish harvest is caught or reared in the coastal water. Coastal area help prevent erosion, filter pollutant, and provide food, shelter, breeding areas, and nurseries ground for the wide variety of organisms. Coastal region also provides critical output of industry, including the water and space for shipping and ports, opportunities for recreational activities such as fishing and diving, and other raw materials, including the salt and sand. There is no common definition of what constitutes the coastal region. Estimate the coastal population vary. Most of based on the area within 60 to 200 kilometer shoreline and may include the coastal floodplains, coastal forest called mangrove, marshes, and tide flat. In many countries, population in coastal areas are growing faster and faster than those non-coastal areas. This is a concern because the population growth and the activities associated with it can degrade the coastal marine ecosystem. Population density. The average population density in the coastal area is about 80 persons per square kilometer, twice the world's average population density. Up to 50% of the population in northern Africa and Bangladesh live in the coastal area. Along the Nile Delta, the population density reaches 500 to 1,000 people per square kilometer. The addition demands that high population density placed on the coast have meant the higher density is associated with the increased risk to marine ecosystem. But higher population densities may have beneficial effect as well. As population grows, some of the government make greater investment in the infrastructure such as sewer liner, sewage treatment plants that ultimately reduce the level of environmental contamination. Migration. Migration is a key factor affecting coastal zone. The figure in China and South Asia are the staggering 1,000 people arrive China's large coastal cities each day, and similar number to move to the coast of Vietnam and the Philippines. The population of Ecuador's Galapagos Island has grown rapidly since the early 1980s, largely due to the arrival of the coastal fishermen. Those fishermen sometimes unknowingly exacerbate the problem created by tanker and ocean liner. By discharging ballast water near the islands, large vessels and small fishing boats have introduced non-indigenous plant and animal species in the island coast. The situation in Galapagos Island also highlight how migration can contribute to the depletion of the natural resources. The arrival of the new fishermen together with the introduction of new fishing techniques and increased access to the credit of the market has contributed to the over-exploitation, the sea, cucumbers, and the region. Urbanization. Many of the world coasts are becoming increasingly urban. In fact, 14 of the world's 17 largest cities are located along coast. 11 of the cities, including Bangkok, Jakarta, and Shanghai, are in Asia. In addition, 2/5 of cities with a population of 1 million to 10 million people are located near the coastline. The urbanization of coasts bring with its coastal development and damage the coastal ecosystem. Urbanization has a deleterious effect on mangrove. Mangrove forests of salt-tolerant trees and shrub that grows in the shallow tidal water of estuaries in the coastal areas and tropical region line about 8% of the world coastline and 25% of the world tropical coastline, where they observe the impact of the storm offers nutrients for the most world marine life. A study by the US-based the World Resources Institute found that the mangrove loss is strongly correlated with the growth of cities and ports. Mangrove forests are also cleared for timber and to make room for the fishes of shrimp ponds, human settlement, and agricultural and industrial development. The Kenya, Liberia, the Philippines, and the Puerto Rico have lost over 70% of their mangroves. Tourism. Coastal area worldwide are major destination of tourism, which represent the fastest growing sector of the global economy. Tourism dominates the economic of some region in small island states. For example, tourism constitutes 95% of the economic of the Maldives and the country's only source of hard currency. Tourism can offer some environmental benefits and such a greater appreciation of the value of the natural resources. In the Caribbean, for instance, deriving tourism has helped raise the awareness about the need of the reef. But tourism can also have harmed effect. It can lead to the unsustainable coastal development as infrastructure to build on the shoreline and accommodate tourism. In the Caribbean, official estimated says that 700 tons of waste are generated annually from the tourism activity. Moreover, the ship provide for long-term economic benefits for the local population since they do not employ many local citizens. Fishing and aquaculture. Marine fisheries and aquaculture that controls the cultivation and harvesting of fresh water and marine organisms. It produces close to 100 million tons of fish, shellfish, and edible plants every year, providing the livelihood for about 35 million people, most whom live in developing countries. Overharvesting to meet the global consumer growing demands for the seafood can deplete many species and alter the biological structure of coastal ecosystem. Many species over-harvested because of the world fishing fleet in large that needs to be. Other problems including destructive harvesting method such as bycatch and trawling. Modern trawling equipment scoop through the sediment of the rock and often kills the worm, sponges, and other species that live on the seafloor. Aquaculture, the world's fastest growing food production activity with an annual growth rate of about 10% in the 1990s. It leads to the destruction of the mangrove and may lead to the adversible and damage to the both australian and offshore fisheries by introducing biological, chemical, and organic pollutants such as antibiotic and pesticides in by the modified habitat. Human health, food security, and gender issues. People who live in coastal region may suffer the cumulative burden of environmental stress from the activities and overcrowding of the coast and from the upstream and island development. If not properly managed, development can result in pollution, deforestation, inadequate management of soil, water, pesticides, and fertilizer. Damming river can also have negative environmental effects such as soil erosion and destruction of ecosystems that support the various fish marine mammals. When concentrated in small, confined in overcrowded areas such as coastal zone, population and other problems pose greater threat to human health. Worldwide, sewage is the largest source of environmental contamination. The discharge have increased dramatically in the past 3 decades. 80% of the marine population comes from the land-based sources. The maintaining 20% comes from the atmosphere resources, including acid rain and marine-based sources soil as oil spill. Chemical and heavy metals found from the pesticides runoff and industrial influence also damage the human marine health. The most serious concern to the worldwide involves persistent organic pollutant, which can be transported to the atmosphere and have become the common in the ocean. POP or persistent organic pollutant tends to linger and living tissue and becoming more concentrated as they move up to the food chain. So, they are sometimes found even in people who live in remote, underdeveloped region. Contaminants and activities can destroy coastal habitat and ecosystem also contribute to the loss of the marine fauna and which many people rely on the food income. Maintaining a healthy coastal habitat is critical because most of the world fish produce the young estuary and feed the organism in the coastal water. Breaking the marine food chain reduce the vital supplies of the protein about 1 billion people, most of whom live in developing countries. Integrated coastal management. Managing population pressure in coastal zone is difficult because those regions encompass many physical, social, and regulatory division. In addition, multiple competing economic sectors, including tourism, fishing, aquaculture, agriculture, forestry, manufacturing, oil and gas extraction, waste disposal, marine transportation, and real estate development, have interest in coastal zones. Government usually manage its sector separately, as it all. Consequently, many coastal nations have experienced rapid, uncontrolled development along their coastline. In the growing number of the countries, coastal zone management managers are adopting integrated multidisciplinary approaches to source management that incorporate the perspective of all stakeholders, including government, the private sector, non-government organization or NGO, and individuals. Integrated Coastal Management, or ICM, an internationally accepted approach to managing the resources that is based on the United States 1979 Coastal Zone Management Act that allows policymakers and planners to make population issues into account when looking at the pressure, threat, and opportunities facing coastal zone. ICM has been endorsed repeatedly in the International Conference on Environmental and Development in Rio, and Summit on the Sustainable Development in South Africa. At least 107 of the world 134 coastal development nations are involved in some of types of ICM effort at the national or sustainable level. And generally, the most successful ICM efforts shared several characteristics, and they are multiple stakeholders, including representatives of all levels of government, NGOs, indigenous groups, communities, and private sector. A strong scientific foundation to inform the management process. A formalized mandate on the funding mechanism. Formal decision-making that incorporates social, environment, and economic data. public participation, starting the initial stage on the policies formulation and program development. Community-based management initial to develop community experience, build support, and provides information about regional and national programs. Capacity building of local experts through training, education, and applied research. Strong outreach service that provides information and education to all levels of the management, and regular collection of the reliable data to measure the resources of the management initiative. And last, future steps in addressing population issue in coastal region. Include population data is baseline studies on coastal and marine resources. Based on studies assessing the threat to coastal area should include the data on the population and the environment, indigenous people concerned, the applicable legislation and the agencies involved, gender concerned, and socioeconomic characteristic of the area. That studies can be conducted using either exhaustive research or rapid assessment techniques. Data can then be applied with simple practitionary tool to quickly assess coastal and marine resources and identify critical threats such as extent of the fishing and any destructive fishing practices. Incorporate population and gender dynamic into planning. Coastal resources managers and policymakers need to integrate health, population, and gender, the nutrition consideration into ICM by determining the characteristic and beneficiaries and stakeholder, NGO capacity, and opportunities in a specific area. For example, women in coastal areas may have a need for family planning. That is, they may want to limit or space their future birth but may not be using contraceptive. Helping women achieve their family planning goals can protect the environment by limiting population growth. But addressing family planning need must be coordinated with several sectors, particularly the health sector. Several strategies can be used in incorporate population and gender dynamics in planning project activities. A program established in one sector and another program in the different sector is later incorporated into the first activity. Simultaneous introduction. This is the number of programs are introduced at the same time and stakeholders consider multi-issues in each stage. Bridge approach. Single sector activities support one another but are conducted by different staff. Symbiotic method. Symbiotic method. It is a program activity are dependent on one another or conducted by the same staff. In the Philippines, for example, projects have used a combination of those models to build link across the sector. ICM project developed out the separate single sector program, such as those introducing ecologically sound fishing practices and improving the quality of availability of couple counseling on the family planning, and later involved into integrated program in which project staff work with the local communities and external expert to coordinate the integrated population, health, and environmental program. Monitor and assess human impact on the marine environment. Integrated management of the marine environment and its natural resources requires greater emphasis on acquiring, analyzing, and using environmental data from a variety of disciplines. It is also involved improving the change of data between the science and the management communities and focusing on one demographic and socioeconomic factor that contributes to marine pollution and coastal degradation. Population estimates the coastal watershed could provide useful information for coastal management, especially if the data describe population dynamic on the large scales. Many problems with water quality and ecosystem are best solved at the watershed level, which encompasses the full area that drains into particular body of water. The Caribbean Coastal Marine Productivity Program, or CARICOM, a regional network of the marine laboratories, park, and river reserves that studies the land-sea interaction, strive to identify which change in the coastal ecosystem are caused by human disturbance in which are simply long-term natural variation. This program focuses on the understanding the structure and the function of mangrove, seagrasses, and coral reef, the primary coastal ecosystem in the Caribbean. The CARICOM is one example of functioning international program for monitoring the coastal marine environment and can be used as a model for another countries or region. Conclusion. Demographic factor, especially migration, are major consideration on how people use coastal region. Understanding how population uses can be integrated into coastal management will help the policymaker, program maker, and community design more viable and sustainable strategies for using the safeguarding the world coast and the resources they provide.